Boom! I'm in the room. The mics are live, and here I am. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Thursday live stream with me, your host, Tim Heale. Some of that. Well, we've got a bit of a show for you tonight. Now, I'll just put a caveat on. A couple of my guests haven't turned to, but they have let me know that they may have trouble getting in tonight because they've got some issues. However, we have got one guest, and we'll be able to do the show without one guest. So without too much further ado, I'm going to bring him straight in. We're going to get straight onto it, and then I'll let you know what's going on later in the show. So without further ado, here comes our first guest. Welcome, Richard. I can't hear you.
Good evening, Tim.
Is your mic live? No. I heard you a minute ago.
How's
you can
that?
tell it's live because we're having trouble already.
Can you hear me?
I could. Your mic's okay from this end. So just make sure it's not me. No, I'm okay this end. So while he's just sorting himself out.
Right, well...
How are we doing?
Can you hear me now? I've got my mic on.
No, you're still muted at your end. Don't you just love going live? Don't you just love the live stuff? This is what it's all about. So, the show tonight. Oh, hang on, we've got comments coming in already. Oh, hi Coco H. Evening. Who we got? We got. Where are we? Eagle VP. Yes. Good evening to you, me old mucker. How you doing? We are. We're having one or two technical issues at the moment, but we shall be with you very shortly. You couldn't make it up, could you? We do have trouble from now and then. Now and then we do have a little bit of trouble. So let's bring him in again. Can we hear you this time? Can you hear us? Yeah, you can hear us. We can't hear you yet. Try saying something. I'll tell you what, it's really warm here today. In the last couple of hours, it's gone really, really close. You know, you get that really muggy closeness. It feels like there's a bit of a thunderstorm coming. I think there's a bit of a thunderstorm coming. Let's just drop them down while they get themselves sorted out. What do you reckon to the new studio? Check this out. I have a new studio. I say a new studio. What it really is, I've turned things round and I've managed to get some lights. So, we're going to be talking about rugby tonight. Now, we're going to look at some important issues. We're going to look at, there's a big problem at the moment with head injury assessments with players. There's a problem also with the Premiership, and I think it's got something to do with World Rugby. But when we get Richard on and we can hear him, he'll fill us in on what's going on there. But essentially, for the international players, they're only going to be able to play about half a dozen games for their clubs this season, which I think it could cause one or two issues with some of the clubs. So Richard's going to let us know all about that. Anyway, right, while let's just bring him back in, see if we've got some sound. Have you got sound?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
No, still can't hear you. Right,
Right.
let me just drop you back down. Oh, it's not me. It's not me, is it?
Yes.
Can somebody pop in the chat box that they can hear me? Can they hear Richard? Hi, Eagle. Right, okay. Well, while they're sorting themselves out, I'm just going to bring up a little bit of a PowerPoint and explain a little bit. Right, regimental rugby. This weekend is regimental rugby. We've got a regimental vets team that we play one of the teams in our recruiting area every year. This year we're playing a team up here near Leicester. The whole idea is before the game we read out a roll of honour of our fallen soldiers that have died in the past from the Royal Anglian Regiment. And just a quick one, today, the 1st of September in 1964, the Royal Anglian Regiment was formed. It got a royal warrant on the 1st of September 1964. So the regiment's been going for a little while now, 48 years. 58 years, I lie like a cheap Japanese watch. I can't do maths. So, the regimental rugby. I played for the regimental vets for quite a few years. I think the bottom photograph there is, I think it was the first game I played. I think that's at Hitchin. And the top one is the last game I played at Thurrock. But I've been involved with the regimental rugby for several years. And I've got my 10 cap as well to prove it. And then the picture on the right there is our regimental plot at the Field of Remembrance at Westminster Abbey. Now we just heard today or yesterday that the numbers that are able to attend that this year have been drastically reduced. They're reduced so much that we've only got 3 for the regiment. So I don't know what other regiments have got that problem, and it's all down to something about going on in what do you call it, Westminster Abbey. They're doing a load of works there or something, so the numbers have been drastically reduced for remembrance, the Field of Remembrance, which is crazy. Oh, good evening, Cheryl. Good evening, Nick. So we've got a few people joining us this evening. Hope you're going to stick around for the whole show. We're going to be talking about some serious stuff in a bit when we get the guest sorted out. Once he's got his audio sorted out. These things are sent to twice, you know. Right, so where did I get to? Next slide. Next slide, please. Right, we're going to be looking at some of this. This is going to affect... We'll come back to this, I think, because Richard's got a better handle on it than I have. So the next slide, please. A few years ago, I had the honour of carting out that large trophy at the Premiership final. And if you have a look, young Anne there, it's as big as she is. But what a day that was. What a day. Twickenham, Saracens, Northampton Saints. It's gone into overtime. It's gone into double overtime. We've gone to 100 minutes of play. The clock's gone dead. The ball's still in play. Northampton are camped on Saracens' try line. They only needed to draw the penalty to win. They backed themselves and they put the ball over. Boy, I was on the sideline watching all this unfold, waiting to carry this oofing great cup out. I was in shreds. I almost couldn't do it. I was so emotionally charged. I say you can't. Who can't hear me? Oh, Richard can't hear me. Ah, that's a problem. I think everybody else can hear me. We can hear you both. All right. Ah, that's interesting. Let's just drop that down for a minute. Let's see if we can get Richard back in. Are you there, Richard? Can you? Can you hear me?
Now?
I still can't hear you. Why can't I hear him?
Because my
Have I-
microphone.
Hang on. Let me just test my mic. It might be my end.
Hang on, let me just have a look again.
Oh, I know what's gone on. Ah, it's me. It's my head.
You're in the show, everyone can see and hear you.
My hearing aids have gone off.
Can you hear me now, Tim?
Come on, get in there. It's my end. Oh,
Can
What's
you
on
hear
that
me
bit?
now?
Hang on. Why is that not? It's this little device here. This connects to my computer and my hearing aids. So for some reason it's gone off. Let me try and sort it out. I'll be with you in a tick. Talk amongst yourselves for a minute. Why is that not doing it? Oh no, it's gone red. Look, can you see that? Oh no. Let me turn it right off. Let me change. I'll change the setting.
I don't think it's.
Oh no. Oh, and I'm very hot as well. I might be able to hear something now. Right, that's coming out of there. So I might pick you up. If you speak now,
Can you hear me now?
drop me down. Can you say something, Richard?
Tim, can you hear me now?
Hang on. No, I can't hear you. Oh, no, what's going on? This is embarrassing. This is what happens when you go live. Oh, I'm melting. I do hope that I'm not putting too many people off the show at the moment. Right. Let's come back in. Let's see. Oh, this is terrible. I can't hear a thing. Why has that gone like that? That should. It's not these, is it? No, it's not them. Oh, I know what it is. It's all right. I've figured out what's going on. That'll come in a second. Let me... God. Stop it. Stop it. Oh. Right. This should work now, hopefully. Yeah. Oh, technology. I should be able to hear you now, Richard.
Right, can you hear me now?
Oh, yes.
So it was at your end and not mine.
Yes, it was by you.
Right.
Oh, no.
You better wind the clock back 15 minutes.
God, good grief. There's always something. This is the trouble when you go live. I mean, sometimes your tech just gets the better of you.
Yeah.
Anyway, I can only apologise for the intermission that we've had. We've had dramas here.
Yeah.
Anyway.
You should have been handing our screens out.
Oh, no. What am I like? Everybody else could hear you, except me.
Yeah.
Now I can hear you.
Right.
We're on it. Okay. Should we get back into what we're going to talk about?
Yeah, whatever. You
Right.
talk away.
Right. So we were just on about this. I'll just finish these couple of slides off. Then we'll go back to the Premiership one, and then we'll look at starting with some Premiership stuff. So that's Northampton Saints. We'll come back to that later. There's an old Northampton Saint, and there's two of the biggest fans of Northampton. So that's Edgar Moggs, if I'm correct.
You're
that
correct.
Right, Richard?
Yeah.
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 Lieutenant Colonel, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, he formed the Northamptonshire Regiment Sporting Battalion, where the army at the time wouldn't let him form his own regiment. He persuaded them to. He filled the team with local sportsmen and international sportsmen. He captained the Saints. He captained England, and he also captained the British Lions. And he was killed during the First World War, obviously.
So let's go to the next slide. Right, this is the game I was on about. I carried the cup out, and that's me with my Northampton shirt on underneath my blues. And there's the final score, 20-24. What a day that was. God, that has gone down in the annals of history, I can tell you. What a day. Oh, I'm still wound up from it now. And this is a little while ago. And there you go. That's the BT Sports Studio. I had the honour of going there a couple of times, but that was me at Twickenham. For about 12 years, I found guys to go on the pitch at Twickenham to take out the national flags before every England game. And I don't think I missed a game in about the 11 or 12 years that I did it. And the last 5 years I did it, I was actually the full link between the events company and the military. So I was finding the guys, I was getting them there, and I was actually worked on the pitch with the headphones, so I was in communications of one of the flags. So yeah, I normally took the opponent's flag because it was the shortest way off the pitch. So
rumour has it we used to go down to Twickenham not to watch the rugby, but to watch you, Tim.
Yeah, I know. I mean, lots of people did, and this this is the reason that I gave up rugby in the end. I don't know whether it was the number 8 not looking after me properly, or whether I was just slowing down. But I continually got scragged, especially off the back of the scrum or the back of a ruck. So that's me being scragged. Who would have thought it, eh? Anyway, so what we'll do, we'll just come back. Do you want to start in with this, Richard? And tell us about what's going on with the England players at the moment.
Yeah, well, the home nations international players who have been selected to play during the recent tours have a set period of time where they're not even allowed to train, and most of them now can train, but they can't play in competitive matches. Most of them have to sit out the first 2 Premiership matches of the season. So, for instance, my club, Northampton Saints, where we've got 8 people, players who were in the squads during the last block of internationals, cannot play. It works out for about another 4 weeks from this weekend because they've got to have compulsory rest. Some of the players who went on tour but didn't play can play this weekend, but the majority of them who did play cannot play for another 3 to 4 weeks. And if you imagine, if the same players get picked for the autumn internationals, which from start to finish is about 8 weeks, because they go away with their country prior to that. And then you look at the autumn internationals, of which there'll be 4. You add that all together with a compulsory rest time. There are certain players like Courtney Laws who you know are going to be picked for those internationals, who I sat and worked it out. You're only going to see them play for their club 6 to 8 times during the season. And obviously some clubs are going to be affected far worse than others, because the likes of Saracens, Leicester, Northampton Saints, who are providing or have provided the bulk of the players, they're obviously going to suffer with the selection of who they can play.
I mean, that does present. I mean, there is a positive to take from it. It also gives the up and coming players, the sort of the reserve players, a better chance of getting some game time and improving their skills and stepping up to the mark while the internationals are away, obviously. So that's got to be another positive to take from it. It may damage the whole team in the sort of short term, but I think in the long term it'll produce a lot better players.
Yeah,
a lot more better players.
But you see, really, say like for the English teams, Premiership teams, there are 2 competitions which are played certainly at the start of the season alongside each other. For instance, we have a game a week today against Saracens, the first home game, but it's not a Premiership game, it's a Premiership Cup game. And on the following Saturday, 2 days later, we play Heale away in the Premiership. And the players who walk out on the pitch in the Premier Cup game are not allowed to be represented in their clubs in the Premiership game. So, for instance, you're going to need 15 players to play, 8 on the bench. So without any internationals who are still on a rest period, it really does stretch your squads to the limit. It does throw up an opportunity for the youngsters in the Premiership Cup, which took over from the Premiership A-League. But people pay good money to go and watch the top players play.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, your time to watch them play is very limited.
Yeah, and I don't suppose they get discounted tickets to go to Twickenham and watch the internationals. I suppose that you get a full price ticket. You don't get a discount.
Exactly.
So, moving on slightly then, just going to bring in another guest for a quick chat. So, are you ready? Put your thumb up if you're ready to come in, Valletta. Here we go. Here's our next guest. Good evening, Valletta. You're muted, hang on. Unmute yourself. I think the dog's muted you. There you go.
Hello, Tim. Hi.
How you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. Yes.
So we're talking rugby tonight, and
I
we're going to be looking at the aspects of mental health, mental well-being for players, particularly in the light of what's going on with the internationals at the moment, not being able to play for their own clubs, and we'll come on to it in a bit, but there's something going through at the moment about head injuries and some of the effects that's been caused and challenged. So Richard's going to give us a bit more heads up on that. But as a colonial, what's your take on the upcoming season internationals? How do you think Australia's going to do, Cobber?
Well, my loyalties are very divided. So when England are playing and Australia are playing, I sort of have to sit on the fence a little bit because I am British, but I still have my heart in Australia. But no, they have a good game when they put their mind to it. I mean, they all have, you've got rugby union and rugby league in
Yeah,
Australia.
well,
I'm not.
we don't talk league. We don't
No.
understand league.
Oh,
It's a funny
okay.
old game. We
Yes.
just like the
Yeah.
15
I
game.
don't understand it either, Tim. I just know rugby is rugby, but I know there's two different types. I'm sure Richard might extend us on the differences if he knows what they are. Um, but yeah, hopefully it will be a good season. I mean, I was very impressed with the women's rugby. They played.
Didn't they
England
do
played.
great?
They did fantastically
Oh,
well. It
they've got to
does.
be number one in the world now, surely.
Yes, I mean they've it's taken them a long time to get recognition, hasn't it? Because women in
Mm.
rugby, women in football is not a done thing really, but they've persevered and they are now international standard and does show how good they are with the men. And it
Mm.
is unfortunate that sometimes, like the England teams, the men's team, don't seem to do as well as the ladies. And I'm not being sexist. I just think it's very weird
Well,
why the men seem to struggle.
yeah. Well, I've got I've got a good handle on that. I believe that the reason that the English men don't do particularly well at football uh, is because A, there's too much money in the game. B,
Yeah.
there's too many foreign players playing in the Premiership,
Mm.
and three, they're not committed enough to want to go and play for the country.
They don't seem passionate enough. I mean, when you watch
No,
the England ladies, they seem very passionate about what they were
yeah,
doing, and just, I mean, there was a lot of men who watched the England ladies, and they were, all over how well they played, and
yeah,
it just shows that it is possible for an England team to do well if they're passionate enough about it.
yeah.
Mm.
So I mean, I think the England men tend to worry a little bit too much about their hair and falling over and acting because I
Well, I
mean
don't know
there's the real thing about rugby players run around for 80 minutes pretending that they're not injured, while football players run around for 90 minutes pretending they are.
Yes, I mean the football players do tend to uh, play on their injuries a bit more, but I must say, in defence of the rugby players, they do tend to get up and say, right, sod it, I'm just going to carry
Yeah,
on, as opposed to getting a little kick and falling over and being laid down for 10 minutes.
I mean that's something we're going to be coming on to shortly about injuries. So
Yes.
um, let's go back to Richard because we stopped in mid flow there. Um, you're back in the spotlight, Richard.
Yeah. So, if, as far as injuries are concerned, obviously it's quite a sensitive subject at the moment. There are nearly 200 former professional rugby players who are now got a court case against World Rugby for not providing enough protection in the laws of the game. And they're all suffering. A prime example is somebody I've met several times in the past is Steve Thompson, who was the England hooker when we won the World Cup. He now claims, and I'm sure he's telling the truth, that actually he cannot remember anything at all about that game and winning the World Cup. And he's even saying now he's having trouble reading because his memory, he can read it, but he can't comprehend what he's reading. You know, and that's a really sad state of affairs. So head injuries are being looked at. There is now a survey being done with the effect of head injuries in grassroots rugby. And I think there's going to be changes right at grassroots level. But certainly in professional rugby, they're looking at devices that measure impact. One is in a head guard, and the other one they're looking at now is an implant in the players' gum shields. So you'll have a doctor sat on the touchline watching all these tackles taking place, and the doctor will make the decision whether or not that player's got to come off for a HIA. And that will be backed up from the evidence from the head guard, the information from the head guard, and the information from the gum shield. So it is quite serious. And there are other things. As you know, several players have recently died from the follow-up of head injuries. And you've also got players now suffering from, and Doddy Weir's a prime example, from motor neuron disease. And they think that is being brought on from the impact from when they were playing. You know, so it is quite serious. And they're now talking about if a player comes off for a HIA, the rest, and it is found positive, the rest period is going to be extended by another week. Compulsory rest.
So for 3 weeks? Yeah.
It's going to be extended. So where a player could be come off for a HIA, which proves positive on a Saturday, but he may well have been selected or available selection a week later. That will not be the case. There will be compulsory rest period for players who are found positive with a HIA. And it's quite interesting to see how a player is judged to be positive. At the start of the season, they put through a series of tests and question and answer routine, and their response time and how correct they are is measured and recorded. So when a player comes off for a HIA, it's not a case of the doctor saying, "Does your head hurt?" You have to sit on, you can't get back on for another 10 minutes. It's they've got to go against the standard of answers that they have set at the start of the season. So, you know, I think they're going to have to take it a step further, for sure. You know.
Can I just say that I do safeguarding for a local rugby club, and the younger rugby players, under 10, under 12s, they have to wear headgear and the gum shields, and they're monitored. And there's sometimes on the younger ones they do a no contact. I don't know how they do that, but there's a no contact. So they have started looking and implementing that in the younger sector. But yes, in the older generation, that needs looking at, because there's a lot of rugby players now, older rugby players, who in the old days never had headgear. They just went for it and might have had mouth guards, and that was it. And, you know, the more that can be done to help these guys and reduce the injury risk, the better.
Yeah, my grandson has just in the last 2 weeks done a 3-day coaching course with at Northampton Saints, and one of the things that they do before they even get out on the grass is have their equipment checked. They have a briefing on safety and, you know, the high tackling and the safety and welfare of not only themselves but the people they're playing with and playing against. You know, and at the young age groups, it is taken quite seriously. And
Yeah.
in fact, I don't think my grandson started playing when he was about 3.
Oh, goodness.
Rugby club, and I think Tim's seen some videos, and
Yeah, he's an old sweat now.
he now plays, I think, in the under 11 age group, and they do have tackling, they do have scrummaging, and they do have contact. But he's only been doing that for the last 2 seasons. And what I think has made it a lot safer for him is he's had professional players, Premiership players, on one-to-one coaching with him. You know, he knows how to fall when he gets tackled. He knows, you know, when to get up straight away or something wrong, don't get up. And I think the more on an educational theme the youngsters get taught, you know, as they play more competitive, more contact rugby as they get older, they're that much more wiser. You know, what is good and not good for their own health.
And certainly how to fall and that is a good thing, isn't it, Richard? Because that's part of it, really, isn't it? Because there's been quite a few injuries with bad tackles.
Right, I'm just going to put a few shout-outs in here. Just like to thank the people, Craig, Carl and Ross, that have clicked the like button. And just to say hi, Albie, if you're still here, Nick, Cheryl, Craig. A couple of good points coming in from Craig. Let's just pull that up.
Which Craig have you got on there? Craig Morris?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And which Carl? Carl Oils?
No, we've got Carl Wakeling. He's an old mate of mine.
Okay.
So it's nice to see him there. So yeah, former players, yeah. So that's come up on ITV News, and
boxing, that's another thing altogether, isn't it? Yeah. You should have another evening with that, sport. Tim, with boxing.
Yeah. Right. I'm just going to plug for upcoming stuff, if I got it right. So next week, you're not going to want to miss. I've got 4 archaeologists coming on. They are professionals. This is going to be a fascinating evening. We're going to be looking at marine archaeology, land archaeology, environmental archaeology, and archaeology in general. So you can't go anywhere. You can't dig a hole in this country without archaeologists knowing about it first or okaying it. If you find something when you're digging an hole, and particularly if it's bone and human bones, well, everything's got to stop. Archaeologists come in and they have to survey it, and you'll find out all about that next week. you don't want to miss it. Make sure you put a reminder in. Make sure that you're sat down ready at 7 o'clock next Thursday. It's going to be a cracking show. The week after, I'm still working on it. I think at the moment, I think the 15th is going to be a bereavement special. It's coming together. So we're going to be talking about bereavement and coping strategies and looking at that side of mental health and coping. 22nd, I'm still working on it. This is a what's name in the progress there. I'm trying to tie up some loose ends for it. Once I've nailed it down, I'll let you know. And the following week, the 29th, we've got the Veterans Mental Health Special. We're going to be focusing in particularly on the suicide rates of veterans at the moment. It's going through the roof. It's ridiculous, and something needs to be happening about it. I'm hoping to get on a couple of big names. I'm just waiting for them to come back and confirm. So that's what's coming up, and you can also, if you like, buy me a coffee. Help support the channel and all that. So there it is down there. So looking forward to that one. Yes. Lots of people are looking forward to that one. That's going to be a cracking one, the archaeological special next week. So, back to this evening. Rugby. And I think what we'll do is we'll move on to looking at particularly the head injury side of it and what's going on with that. So, Richard, if you can enlighten us a little bit more as to what's going through the court side of it.
Okay. I think it's in the region of about 150, 180 former professional players have now lodged a complaint, which is going through the courts, to the World Rugby Federation, claiming that they are suffering memory loss and such like from head injuries caused during their playing days. And that includes dementia. And basically what they're saying is that the World Rugby Authority had not put things like HIA assessment, the wearing of protective equipment in place during their playing days. For instance, if a player, got concussed during a match, and I'm sure we've all seen it, where they come out, put a cold sponge on them, and 2 minutes later they're up and playing again. Well, that's all well and good, but for the personal long-term health, it's not good. We all know that. We've all had bangs on the head through various, career, whether it be sporting or military or whatever. So that's ongoing, and it will be very interesting to see how that pans out and develops. There are a number of high-profile players, who are common names. Dylan Hartley, the one who really kicked it off was Steve Thompson, obviously an England international and World Cup winner. Dylan Hartley, who, as you probably know, the most successful England captain in matches played against a ratio of matches won. He's another one. And the list is a very long list of players. And obviously, how that pans out, one, it's going to probably cost World Rugby an awful lot of money in compensation. But if it is proven, then I can see an awful lot of changes in the laws of the game.
Well, What are the changes for this season? Because obviously every season they bring in some new rules, some new things for particularly the referees to look out for. What are you seeing is this year's sort of number one thing that the refs are going to be looking out for?
As far as concussion and head injuries are concerned, there's a dedicated doctor who's watching a monitor on the sidelines. And a lot of times now, it's the club physio or that doctor monitoring the game who makes a decision that a player's got to come off, not the referee. So that's a change. Also, if a player fails his HIA, the extension of the time before he can play again, and that also includes returning to training, because obviously there's body contact and during training, even though clubs are now restricted to the amount of full body contact training they can do.
They're reduced to 2 days a week.
Yeah, I think they're only allowed full body contact training 2 days a week. Whereas, it used to be you can scrummage and tackle as much as you like, but not anymore.
So how are they going to police that? It's obviously down to clubs to police it themselves.
Yeah.
Are they going to have any reps going round from the RFU to keep an eye on that?
I would imagine they will, Tim. There's a lot of welfare issues, not just head injury, which the RFU get involved in, and they have dedicated people to go round the club, monitoring welfare, speaking to the players, and trying to provide support for them. Yeah. And also, depression in players has rose its ugly head a couple of times in recent seasons. A prime example was a young lad who we had at Northampton Saints called Tom Stevenson, centre, England age group player. And he suffered a couple of really bad injuries which curtailed his career. He suffered from depression terribly and contemplated suicide. He's not returned to playing, but he does do quite a lot of charity stuff now for ex-players, funding and whatever. Awareness. And awareness of that side of it, which, everybody thinks, it's all contact related, but there's a lot goes on up here as well.
Yeah. I mean, as a former player myself, and I played a lot of club rugby over the years for different clubs. I played a little bit down at North at Hitchin when I was at Chicksands, and I played quite a lot for the old Cats, the old Caterhamians, and it was hard watching your mates play, and you couldn't get on the pitch because you're carrying an injury, and that plays on your mind, because it's especially if your substitute's on and you can't play, and he's not doing particularly well and he's struggling out there, and you could do better, but you can't get on. That plays on your mind.
Yeah.
And I think that then, if you let it get away with it, it starts playing on your mind, and it starts manifesting into some sort of issue that you have.
Yeah.
So from a player's perspective, I mean, when you're not playing or you're not getting picked for the team, or you put on a bench when you're perfectly fit and they're picking somebody over you. It does play on your mind a little bit. So, and
Yeah.
I'm sure that goes across the piece, whether you're right down at grass levels at club rugby, or whether you're playing up at international level and you get picked for an international, and then at the last minute you get dropped because somebody else has come fit and and you get sent back to your club. I'm sure that has an effect on the mental stability of a player.
Yeah. So, do you want to talk a little bit about this season's Premiership?
Yeah, let's look at that. We're about 50 odd minutes in now, so we're
Okay.
doing well today. I mean, we apart from the start, obviously.
Yeah. Well, obviously, we've now got the Premiership season about to kick off in just over a week's time. For those of you who don't know, there are 13 teams in the Premiership. So each team plays 24 fixtures because you can't play against yourself, home or away. So there's 24 fixtures. The most northern team is Newcastle, and the most southern team is Exeter. Can anybody on here name all 13 teams?
Oh, there you go. There's a question.
There's a challenge.
There's a challenge.
Okay.
Pop it in the chat
I
box.
can give you a bit of help.
Yeah, we've got the north and the south teams.
Yeah, we have. So we've got two.
Right,
11 to go.
The most northerly team is Newcastle.
Mm.
Yeah.
Then you've followed by Sale. And then in the Midlands, we have...
Hang on. We'll give them a chance in the chat box.
Okay, all right.
Come on. There you go. We're going to carry on talking for a few minutes.
Yeah,
Come up with some of the other
they'll
teams.
be looking it up on Google.
Yeah, I know.
That's cheating. That's cheating.
Of course,
Mind you, you've
But it's
given
a
them
way of
3
learning.
already, Richard.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I split the league when I start the season. I split the league up, and I judged Northampton about where I place them and 2 where they end up. I think my 4 or 5 strongest teams for obviously Leicester, Saracens, Northampton. I think as a dark horse team, I would look at London Irish. And I think at the bottom, we will be looking at Worcester, who might not end up playing any fixtures. I think Wasps will struggle because they've let a lot of good players go. They've recruited, I would say they've lost better players than they've recruited. And that's probably through financial reasons. So who else would I put down there? Newcastle, I think will struggle. Worcester, Wasps, Newcastle, I think will be fighting out down the bottom. At the top, like I say, Leicester.
Are they going to be able to carry on what they did last year, you think?
I do. They've got a very strong squad and strength in depth.
They've lost, out how they're paying them.
Obviously, they've lost George Ford and Ellis Genge have left.
Yeah.
But they have recruited well. They've recruited Andre Pollard, the South African. However, I read today that he is not available for selection for the Springbok because he's injured and has been sent back to Leicester to recover from injury. But they've signed him, Andre Pollard. Anthony Watson from Bath they've signed, and Jimmy Gopper from Wasps, who's probably the oldest playing player in the Premiership now, I would think.
So going to be far off.
They've recruited quite well, I think, Leicester. So they'll be strong.
Should be a good season this year for them. Be nice to go up and see him again. I haven't been up to see him for a couple of years.
What, Leicester?
Yeah, I
cheating
support Leicester
Tigers.
Tigers.
When you go home afterwards, make sure you disinfect yourself well. I think the Hampton Saints will do reasonably well. They will definitely miss their internationals, but I think, having watched them last Saturday, I think they've recruited really well, and they've recruited young lads, but with a proven track record, and certainly where I see the Saints being at their strongest is in the second row and back row, which used to be a weakness. But when you look at the players available, we've signed the Australian second row with a triple-barreled name, and I think it ends with Lotto. But he looked a good player. He's got an awful lot of caps for Australia. They've signed him. Obviously, we've got Courtney Laws. We've got Lewis Ludlam. We've got the Augustus, who's South African. And if you look at the forward stats for the whole of the Premiership last year, he was top. Ball carrying, tackling, players beaten. If you look at it, if you Google it or whatever, and you'll see it's John Augustus, who's number 8. He's not too old, and I think that he will probably take over as the number 8 for South Africa in the next year. Because I see Wies, the Leicester number 8, playing, and I playing for South Africa, and I think my personal opinion is Augustus is going to be a far better prospect. So, we've got David Ribbons on the verge of the England team, Alex Coles, who is an England age group player, young lad, only 21, Alex Moon. So we're very strong in the back row, and in the back row and second row. So I see that hopefully being our strength. And we've got some really, really up-and-coming youngsters playing that age group.
Coming up through the academy.
Yeah, the England under-18 team, which has just returned from South Africa, where they went on a tour, were captained by a Saints young second row. So there's obviously a lot of strength there. And other young players who I think are players to watch, Tommy Freeman, who nobody had heard of. Leicester rejected him from their academy. Saints picked him up, and he's now a full England international after one season, and he is mustard.
Leicester missed a trick there then.
They certainly did, yeah. So,
what about the likes of Exeter? I mean, they were doing really, really well a couple of years back.
Yeah, I think they are a team that is obviously going through a lot of change, and I do rate the coaching staff at Exeter. Baxter and Heafer, Ali Heafer, who is an ex-Saints player, I think he was tipped to take over as director of rugby at the Saints for some time. That may well be on the cards in the future. So Baxter has been around a long time. I remember watching him play in the Championship when he was captain of Exeter. So, you know, Exeter and Bristol, I would say mid-table, because I think London Irish, if you look at the recruitment, I think London Irish have recruited excellent. We had a Happy Ratuniwara, giant of a man. Nobody knew his age. He didn't even know his own age. He's been at Saints for 3 or 4 years, and his contract came up for renewal, and the Saints offered him 1 year extension, and London Irish offered him a 2 with an option of another year. So he went to London Irish, but a superb bloke to meet, and a superb player. Always gets over the game line. So, and I think they've got some young, fast players, London Irish, and I think them and the Saints, if you want to watch good, fast-flowing rugby, they're the 2 teams
Couple of teams to watch.
Go and watch.
And what about our new coach for Saints?
Well, anybody who goes and watches the Saints, he's not new. He's been there. Phil Daleson.
He's stepped up, hasn't he? He used to play for him for years, didn't he?
So he knows what he wants. I'm quite sure. He's a good speaker, a good motivator. He was a superb player. Captain the England Saxons for 3 or 4 seasons. I think he'll be all right, because as far as coaching team goes, I think at the Saints, all round, when you look at the coaching staff, I think we have one of the best. People will say about Borthwick and the ex-rugby league player at Leicester, but we've got at the Saints a superb coaching team, and I think when you've got somebody like Sam Vesti, the former Leicester player, coaching the backs, you know they're going to be dynamic and fast, dynamic and accurate. So
yeah,
I'm quite looking forward to this season.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get up to Northampton at some stage for a game. Go and see one of the games up there this year. Determined to do it. So we'll give you a shout when we're up.
How many teams have you got?
Well, in the chat box, come on. There's nobody putting anything in the chat box. Come on. Name some of the other teams in the chat box.
Harlequins.
Yeah.
Queens, yeah.
You got Harlequins, you got Leicester Tigers, Exeter, like you say, Newcastle. Did you say Sale, Richard?
Yeah.
Yes, that's Sale. 5 out of the 13, so we need 8 more.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got Northampton, obviously, because we've been talking about them.
And not
a bit of help. In the Midlands, you've got Saints, Tigers and Wasps.
That's it.
Up north, you've got Newcastle and Sale.
Yeah.
Down south, what I call it, the southern sector, you've got Exeter, Bristol, Gloucester and Worcester.
Yeah.
And then London, you've got Harlequins, Saracens, London Irish.
You have, yes, Saracens,
so
yes.
That's probably the lot.
Yeah, they're kind of spoilt, aren't they, over in the west there? I mean, they got 4 teams.
Yeah.
Glasgow, Worcester, Bath and Bristol.
The other thing that I've been looking...
And Exeter. So there's 5 teams in the west.
Yeah.
So we missed one, didn't we? Bath and Bristol.
The other thing I've been looking at is, and it's slowly decreasing, the number of clubs that actually play on original and dedicated rugby stadiums in the Premiership. What are not shared.
Northampton's one.
Yeah.
That's not shared.
That's not shared.
Not shared.
Well, Wasp is shared.
Yeah.
Bath and
Is-
Bristol share, don't they?
No.
They've got individual.
But,
You
but,
got the
but
Rec.
the Rec is dedicated rugby. Franklin's Gardens is dedicated rugby. Pooh Corner up at Leicester, dedicated rugby. Exeter, dedicated rugby.
Yeah.
Sale, footballers played there. Newcastle on the plastic pitch now, that's dedicated rugby. But Was, football ground. Bristol, football ground.
Gloucester.
Gloucester,
That's,
no. They
that's
wouldn't
dedicated. King's Home, innit?
let you take a round ball on that pitch. But there are more and more. I looked at the size of the stadia, and Was, the three biggest were Was, Bristol, and then Leicester Tigers. But Was is a football ground. Bristol is a football ground. So,
But they never, they only half fill them, don't they?
yeah.
So Franklin's Gardens is nearly always sold out.
Well,
I mean, they've increased. What's the size of it there? It must be
15,800.
15,800. So yeah, and that's with a new stand, isn't it? The Burwell stand.
Yeah.
Ah.
So
Yeah, it's a nice ground, that, Richard. I remember when we went there for the match.
it got voted the best rugby stadium. I did a poll. The best rugby stadium for away supporters to go to. And it won by a mile. And anybody who knows anything about Premiership rugby has got to say it has got the best playing surface in the country. That is without question. And when you look at the problem Wasps have got with sharing the ground with Coventry, because the European Championships, whatever it was, European Games, Commonwealth Games, sorry, had rugby in it, the pitch got absolutely hammered. And and Coventry City, who they ground share with, got the English Football League to come and examine the pitch, and they wouldn't let them play on it. They said it was dangerous. And Coventry Football Club haven't played a home game at the Rico this season yet.
Because it's still that bad.
They played some at Burton Albion, and they played some at Birmingham City. Their home fixtures, because the pitch was in that much of a mess. But I saw the Saints pitch obviously on Saturday, and it looked just like a green carpet, immaculate. If you can't play good rugby on that sort of surface, you can't play good rugby.
Well, that'll be just fast flowing rugby. It's ideal for that. And even when it's wet, it's a great pitch to play on because it doesn't get muddy, does it?
No. Well, all these rugby grounds, what have got grass, they use these special lights on, which promotes grass growth. But at the Saints, we, as you know, beyond the southern stand, we got the lake. And what they do, they pump water out the lake, spray it on the pitches, and then obviously it goes through into the drainage system and goes back into the lake.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So,
regeneration, that's good. That's a good idea.
Yeah. So and also at the Saints, they reckon by next September they're building on what used to be the number one training pitch. They're building, and they've started on it, an indoor training centre. Reckon they'll have an artificial grass down that will replicate the grass on the proper pitch. And it's going to be sort of, the playing surface, I think, is going to be 3/4 size. So they can train all winter without playing on the pitches. So
that'll be good.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing that when it's completed. Yeah.
Right, I'm just going to give another plug, because I can, because it's my show. So, next week, this is one that nobody wants to miss. This is going to be a brilliant show. I've got 4 professional archaeologists coming on from Wessex Archaeology. These guys are at the top of their game. We've got a marine archaeologist. She's brilliant. We've got a land archaeologist. We've got an environmental archaeologist, and we've got another archaeologist. And if you don't know how your life is affected by archaeology, you want to watch this show. You'll find out. When they were dredging for the 2 aircraft carriers that we've got, Queen Elizabeth and Prince of Wales, they dug up all sorts of stuff out of the harbour, and the archaeologists were involved on a daily basis on the stuff that they were bringing up. There was also the mine explosive, or the explosive teams on hand as well, because they found a lot of unexploded ordnance that they had to go and blow up. Caused a nightmare in the harbour every time they found one of these bombs, or a load of these bombs, when they dredged them up. They had to close the harbour, everything. Oh, it's nightmare. So that's one you don't want to miss. Then the 15th, I'm almost sure we're going to do a bereavement special. We're going to be talking about bereavement. We're going to be talking about coping strategies and moving on from losing someone. And it's going to be a really interesting one. I've got a special guest lined up. I'm having to do a pre-recording for it because she's across the other side of the world. But she's got a great story to tell. And I'll obviously have a few other experts in to go through this and the effects of loss and how to move on and cope with it. Then the big one, oh, hang on, the 22nd, that one's a work in progress. As soon as I know if I can pull it off, I'll let you know. But it's going to be a special one. It's going to be a fascinating one, guarantee it. And then at the end of September, we got a mental health special, and this is we're going to focus in on particularly suicide of veterans. There's an awful lot. There's roughly 22 people a day taking their lives in this country. That's sort of one every couple of hours. And it's got to stop. We need to be able to do something about this, and that's what we're going to be talking about on that one. And that's just before we go off, or I go off, to Ride to the Wall. If you don't know what Ride to the Wall is, it's around about 8,000, 9,000 veterans on motorcycles, and we form up around the country and we descend on the National Memorial Arboretum up in Staffordshire. So I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be a great day out. It'll be my first time up there, so I'm really looking forward to that. And then that'll bring us then looking forward into Remembrance, going forward for Remembrance Month. So that's what we've got coming up in the next few weeks. You can also, if you like, buy us coffee. Just help, because I'm poor, I'm skint. What else have we got going on?
Regimental rugby.
What's that?
Regimental rugby. Do you want to give that?
Regimental rugby. Saturday. This Saturday, up at Syston Rugby Club just outside Leicester. The Royal Anglian Veterans are taking on Syston Rugby Club. I think the kick-off is something like about 12:30ish, guesstimate. I was hoping to get one of the guys on from the admin team for the regimental rugby. Unfortunately, they're tied up and can't make it because they're a bit involved with all the stuff that's going on for the weekend. So that's going to be a great game. And the idea of the game is that we raise a few funds for the regimental benevolent fund, and we also honour our dead. And we have a roll of honour called before the game, last post, and then they go on and get on with the game. And we've done all right over the last few years. The regimental teams pulled off a few wins.
Mm.
So they're maintaining. We always get a fairly, it's funny, we always manage to put out a fantastic big pack. The backs and the, a bit slower nowadays.
Albeit a bit older.
Yeah, the pack are pretty awesome. So that's Saturday up at Leicester, and then Sunday is the regimental gathering at Duxford, and that, as always, it's going to prove to be another fantastic day out where we get to meet up with old colleagues and old friends. So that's what's coming up over the weekend.
Just
there you go.
for anybody who's listening who's going to Duxford, the location within the Imperial War Museum has changed slightly. As you look at the memorial, we normally are positioned on the left of it. This year, it's been moved. We're going to be on the right and nearer to the runway, so I'm told.
Oh, okay.
Different?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That might make the march past a bit interesting.
Yeah, because I got told it had been double booked. Well, not, I think, actually, Tim, they'll be able to do the march pass where they normally do it. It's just where the tents will be and the seating and the bar is going to be
a slightly different place.
That's going to be in a different location, apparently.
Yeah. Still looking forward to it. It'll be another great day out. The weather's looking slightly iffy, but I don't think it'll rain on the righteous. It hasn't done for the last, 15 years that I've been. We've always had pretty good weather. In fact, I've been going longer than that. I've been going since we moved from, we used to do it at Bassingbourne, and then we moved to Duxford, and it's been there, I don't know, it must be 20 years at least.
Yeah, a long time.
Yeah, a long time we've been going to Duxford, and we've got the regimental museums there, so anybody that doesn't know, it's the Royal Anglian Regiment. And today is the anniversary of the formation of the regiment. We were formed on the 1st of September 1964 when we got the Royal Warrant from the Queen. Prior to that, it was the East Anglian Regiment that was formed in 1958. Prior to that, we had the amalgamation of the 9 East of England county regiments. And so we were made up of the Royal Norfolks, the Suffolk Regiment and the Cambridge Regiment, which was the 1st Battalion, which were the Vikings. And then we had the Royal Lincolns, the Leicestershire Regiment, Northamptonshire Regiment, which made up the 2nd Battalion, which are the Poachers, which I am one, Richards is another. If you break us in half, it says Poacher all the way round, just like a stick of rock. And then we've got the Beds, Herts and Essex regiments, and they make up what was the 3rd Battalion, which were the Pompadours. And the Pompadour is a French colour, which they borrowed once, I think. That's where they got their name from. And then we also had the 4th Battalion, which was the Tigers, which were the Royal Leicesters. They got disbanded in 1974 and amalgamated into the other battalions. And then we had 5, 6 and 7 battalions, which are the reserve battalions. So we were a massive big regiment once. we're now down to three battalions: the 1st Battalion and the 2nd Battalion, and then the 3rd Battalion is the Reserve Battalion, and now the Steelbacks. And the Steelbacks come from what was the old Northampton's name, and they got that name, as far as I know, was when they used to stick them on a wheel to flog them. They never made a sound when they were getting flogged. There you go, little bit of regimental history.
You forgot the Rutlands.
Oh, the Rutlands, yeah. Well, they were amalgamated into the Northamptons, weren't they?
Yeah, yeah. 48, 58.
Yeah. Oh, such a long time ago. I mean, the regiment's been there, and it's been as far as we're concerned, it's the best regiment in the British Army. And I'm missing what I'm doing. I should be there. It's hard work being this. I need a producer. So, we've got a lot to talk about in the coming weeks. We're still concentrating on mental health, mental well-being, and that's going to be our theme, running through lots of stuff. Obviously, next week, not quite sure how we can. I'm sure we can weave some mental health issues in there somewhere, particularly for the marine archaeologists that have go down, feeling their way down, and it must be scary. How can you breathe underwater and you can't see, and you happen to feel because it's all silted up because they're dredging it? We'll find out next week. So we might be able to weave a bit of mental health in there. Last week I did a suicide awareness course. Really, really good. If you get the opportunity to go and do a suicide awareness course, learn quite a lot. Mental health first aid, that's another great course. There's lots of courses about. If you do a search online for mental health first aid, suicide awareness, they're really good courses to go and do. And it's all about looking after yourself, looking after your own mental well-being, and taking care of yourself first and foremost will then give you the opportunity to be able to look after other people. If you don't look after your own mental health and you go down, you then become, I don't want to say it, but you might become a little bit of a burden to somebody else that actually needs your help. So look after yourself, look after your own well-being. Identify some of the struggles that you're having with yourself. If you are struggling, then seek a little bit of help and advice. There's a whole myriad of places you can go. You can go and see your doctor if you can get an appointment. If you can't get an appointment with your doctor, there are hundreds of charities out there that focus in on mental health and mental well-being, and care for the carers. Don't let yourself sort of start getting into this spiral of going into a depression. If you're suffering from anxiety or stuff like that, if you feel it coming on, talk to somebody about it, because if you start talking about it to people, there's just a myriad of help out there, and everybody goes through some sort of problems that occasionally we all suffer from it occasionally. But if you talk to somebody about it, it halves the problem. It gets it out there. It gets it off your chest. And if you're having dark thoughts and about doing some mischief to yourself, then again, seek some help. There's tons of help out there. You're not alone. So that's the message that we're going to be pushing out on this channel. And we're going to do it in a fun way, obviously. I mean, we do like to have a laugh on this show. We do like to have a bit of a giggle. So, where do we get to? Right, should we go back to the guests? Let's have a chat with Valletta. I mean, she's got her own coping strategy. It looks like they sat all over her.
Yeah. No, I'm babysitting a couple of my friends' doggies for the week. She's gone to Corfu and didn't want to put them in kennels. So
Ah.
Muzzle's on the floor in his bed, and the 2 lap dogs are on my lap.
So, so you
One is
can't get up,
Bertie.
you can't do anything.
No. You talking about the archaeology, Tim? I
Yes.
remember, I mean, when I was working up near Smithfield Market at Barts Hospital, I used to have to get off at Farringdon Station to get through to Barts. And Farringdon Station had an awful lot of work going on there. And because they were digging through on the underground, and the amount of stops and stoppages they had and every time they found something. And the archaeologists, as soon as they go in, I mean, in construction, that is a dread that you find something, because you know it's going to put delay on the job. And Farringdon went on for years. I mean, I was at Barts Hospital for a good couple of years, and they were still faffing about there after I finished. Yes, I mean, that it is an interesting thing, but not in construction. And the amount of, and yes, the ordnance they found. There was an awful lot of ordnance found. Oi! It's all right, Muzzy's woke up. Muzzy, hello, baby. Yeah, so sorry, I've got 3 dogs here at the moment. But yeah, with mental health, I went through PTSD resolution, and I was with them for 3 years, and I had an ex-para help me, and he saved my life, basically. So you do need to talk to somebody before it gets too bad, and even, just getting you over certain periods, because it's not something that just can be cured. It's there forever, but you can manage it. I think if you can manage it, that helps a great deal, and you can try and lead a normal life with it.
Yeah. I think from a personal perspective, I'll put my hand up. I had a wobble 2 or 3 years ago. When I first left the military, while I was in the military, I was coping with it. My job was as a welfare officer. I'd done all the courses, so I've done the mental health first aid, I've done the care for the carers, I've done the welfare officers course, I've done the suicide course. So I'm aware of all of that, and I've dealt with lots and lots of people that had problems. And it wasn't until I left that it started, because of that release, one thing another. For me, that's when it started to catch up on me. Some of the stuff that I'd done. I mean, people know that I've done 7 operational tours when I was in psychological operations, and I'd seen an awful lot of stuff, and I dealt with it at a time, and it's all compartmentalised, and I'm okay with it. But I had a little bit of a wobble, and I went to see the doctor, and he put us onto the local, I forget what they called it now, but it was, they were all right. I mean, they were okay, but because they're civilian, they just didn't understand what an ex-serviceman's been through. It wasn't much of a help to me. It's not saying that it's going to be, it's not going to be the same for anybody else, but for me, it did really help. But I had a chat actually I had a chat with Harry, so I'm not going to sure what I'm going to do now that he's gone. But I'm okay now. I mean, it's fine, and I got through it. But I recognise the signs and the symptoms early, and that's the key. When you notice something not quite right, that you start to feel a little bit anxious, you're feeling a little bit depressed. Something something doesn't feel right, you feel a little bit more emotional than you normally would, then talk about it with someone. And that's the way to get through it. And again, there are so many charities around to help out. There's lots and lots of veterans groups. In fact, I was at a veterans group today, the Veterans Outreach Services.
I've heard of them.
Brilliant. Yeah. So they've been going for a lot of years, and there's one close to us, just over in Stubbington. So I've been to them today. They meet up on a Thursday. There's another group I go to next Wednesday, first Wednesday of the month, and that's the Buns and Banter. And yeah, we take the mickey out of the crabs and the matlows. It's what it's all about. And you get some stickies and a wet. So that's another group that's really good to get with. And I'm involved with a few other groups. There's a place down in Gosport here, C2U, that are helping vulnerable people. They're helping veterans particularly. It's a bit of a drop-in centre, and they do food and stuff like that. They give away food to people that can't afford it, and there's quite a lot of help there available. So that's what we've got going on in this area, and I'm sure every area's got their own self-help groups. So seek them out. There's people, like-minded people that have come out of the military, that are veterans, that are quite happy to have a chat and point you in the right direction. I'm just going to give a couple of shout-outs. I don't know whether you're still there, but Dave, Cloud9 Balloons. Hey, thanks for joining in. Joppy Matai, how you doing, old mucker? It's good to see that you're still about. I noticed that you got a new job the other day. Those that know, you know. I saw it come up. And anybody that hasn't clicked the like button yet, go on, give, you know what? You can even give us a heart. There's the ability to give hearts and cares. So feel free to do that. It doesn't cost you nothing. If you haven't subscribed to the channel when you're on YouTube, you can do that. That doesn't cost anything. And Big Brother doesn't chase you down or anything like that. But it just helps us grow and gets the word out there. The more people that watch our show, the more people we can give out this information that we are here. We're talking about taboo subjects and we're bringing them into normal conversations. So there you go. That's the plug.
I think it's quite good, Tim, that you've got the YouTube on there as well, because when I was on holiday in Scotland, I obviously missed one of your shows, but then I was able to watch it on YouTube, and that's a really good idea.
Yeah, and I really appreciate it when people are joining in, asking questions, particularly when we have a Q&A. We'll have a Q&A coming up soon, and the last one, what was the first question we had? Nick asked it, I think. Should the UK bring back the death penalty? That was an interesting conversation that we had.
Sure,
that was the first question.
That could go on forever, that subject. And if you were talking
Yeah.
between veterans, blimey.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the sort of thing that we like to bring out. I mean, we occasionally have these Q&A open forums. And we never know what's going to go on those. We never know who we're going to get into the live. But if you want to come on the show and have a chat, just ping us a message, and I'll ping you the link to come into the live chat, and you come on, and you can look like me, gorgeous on the screen, and we can have the conversations. We want to talk about bereavement. We want to talk about suicide. We want to talk about mental health. We want to bring this out into normal, everyday conversations. So the more people that talk about it, the easier it is to deal with. We can talk about death, and we had a real laugh at it the other day. It was it on last week's live that we were talking about death, I mean, just come from the funeral from Harry the day before, and Harry had the conversation about what he wanted at his funeral, and it was a really good day. It went off really well. Yes, we had a few laughs and a few tears at the ceremony, and then we had a really good time afterwards in the football club. And Harry was actually his coffin was draped over with the Union flag. He had his medals there, and he had his cap and stuff. But inside, he was dressed up in his Minions pajamas.
Bless him. Oh, it was a lovely service, Tim. It was a lovely service.
It was, and I think it's still up on YouTube if you want to catch it.
Oh.
Yeah, I was in tears. I struggled. It's really, really difficult losing a best mate, and that's the second one I've lost. I don't think anybody wants to be my best mate anymore because I'm a little bit careless with them.
Never. Never.
I know. It wasn't my fault, honest. So that's what we're trying to do with this channel. Which we're growing. We're getting more subscribers. The more subscribers we get, the better we can push this message out, and the better people are informed. So if you could help, you can help just by subscribing to the channel. If you click the bell, it will tell you when we're going live. We go live every Thursday at 7 o'clock. British summertime at the moment. The back end of October, it will be back to Greenwich Mean Time. So that's what we're doing. We're going to keep this going. We're going to keep the conversation going. If you want to join in, you can come into the live show, and you can also join in the chat box. So Coco, yeah, I'm on YouTube, yeah, lovely, brilliant. So people are out there still. So thank you for sticking with us. I know sometimes it goes a bit dry, and we have to sort of steer the conversation back to what we're talking about. But let's get back to the rugby.
Tim, can I just thought of something we would probably like to discuss. Is members of the armed forces playing professional rugby at the highest levels during the professional era.
Yeah.
There's probably,
half a dozen.
when you think about it straight away, I did, you can come up with probably 4 or 5 people. But actually, when you sit and think about it, during the professional era I'm talking about, there's more people than you. It takes a little while, but you think of quite a few people who are ex-armed forces playing at the top level. And a few names I'd just like to mention is Rory and Tony Underwood.
Yeah.
Tim Rodber. Wainwright, who played for Scotland and the Lions. Rob Wainwright. At the Saints, we seem to have had a very good relationship, especially during the professional era. Obviously, Tim Rodber, John Steele, who was captain and fly half at the Saints. He was a Remy officer. Chris Budgeon, who was a corporal in the Regiment of Wales.
Yeah. I remember him playing at the same time as Bruce
Rihanna.
Yeah, remember those days? They were great.
Who else? Who was who?
Bean.
Yeah, Lewis Bean, who now plays for Glasgow. He was at the Saints for 2 seasons.
Yeah, Rocky Naguni.
Yeah.
He's Fijian.
Who was at Bath and is now playing in. Yeah. Sam Matavesi at the Saints now, who is a current Fijian international. So there is quite a few. I saw a Fijian from the Green Jackets has just signed for a club as well this last couple of weeks. So, to play at professional Premiership level.
I
And
mean, these guys are really lucky because, I mean, the days of the old tracksuit soldier are pretty much gone.
yeah,
So there are very, very few guys that get the opportunity to be able to be in the forces and to be able to play professional sports.
yeah,
And there are very few nowadays because I think the army is such under pressure with just a lack of people, and that's the biggest issue with it.
yeah.
The,
It's
the
not just
recruiting's down at the moment, and
I listened to a live Ben Hawes, who's the commanding officer of the poachers, did a live presentation on Facebook to his soldiers this week and all of the families. And it was a question and answer session, and he went through the battalion's diary for the next 2 years. And he explained to the wives what was being laid on for them to help them cope with a separation that they were definitely going to have. Because they deploy this week onto Salisbury Plain for Wessex Storm. They complete that. They've then got a commander's exercise to attend in Germany. They've got a recce to do for Oman, and then January to April next year they'll deploy to Oman.
oh, Mr. Winter, lucky buggers.
Yeah,
That'll be safe Sarira, I guess.
Yeah, Anne says they won't let her go. But it just crossed my mind about the number of armed forces players. Another one just struck my mind, who I should have remembered. Matty Stewart, who played for Scotland while he was at the Saints, and he was, I think, in the Royal Artillery, a corporal in the Royal Artillery. I think so. There are quite a few.
Yeah.
Excuse me for interrupting. I'm going to have to head off. I've got to take my mum to hospital in the morning, so I've got quite a bit to get sorted. But it's been lovely. It's been a really good evening. Very interesting, Richard. I've learnt a lot from you, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
And you.
Okay, then.
Thanks, Vanessa. Catch up with you soon. Oh, date for your diary, 25th of February next year, another big breakfast.
Oh, good. I'll see you Sunday. All right, then.
Okay. Take care. Bye. There you go. That's Valletta. She's ex-forces, by the way. It's nice that she joined in this evening. So we're coming towards the end of the show. We've only got about 15 minutes left. So if anybody's got any questions they want to stick in the old into the comments box, we're quite happy to answer them. And also, if you haven't done it already, click the like button. Just click the like button. It doesn't hurt and it doesn't cost anything, but it does help. Helps you as well as us. What do you think to that? What do you think to my new setup? Hi Paul, how you doing, mate? Remember that old shirt? The old Kate Hamian's Veterans. They were some games. Remember that one we had up at Wallingham under the floodlights? Remember we borrowed those shirts? and these shirts, we had the shirts we'd ordered hadn't come in time. And we had to borrow some shirts, and they were about, I don't know, 4XL or something like that. And the one I had on there, we could have sort of wrapped it around me about 3 times. And I'm trying to scrum off with this shirt on. It's ridiculous. And we're playing under floodlights and everything. And we're playing one of the dirtiest teams in the league. Oh, those were the days. Yeah, I used to turn out for the old KTAmians. I used to play for the twos. I never made the first team. I was getting too old for that sort of malarkey. But that was fun. There you go. So, yeah, that's what we're trying to do. We are trying to get the word out there. We're trying to grow the channel. We are talking about all sorts of subjects, but bringing into it the mental health aspect of it all, and all aspects of mental health. And what we're trying to do is normalise that conversation. And tonight we've been talking about rugby and the associated problems that rugby players have, particularly at the moment where there's a big controversy over the age. Let's bring that back up again. There you go. This is what's facing the Premiership rugby at the moment. Is there's the guys taking the World Rugby to the courts because they've not looked after the players. Although this is all about where this is the other bit. This is where they're saying that players can't play for their clubs if they're playing for the national sides. So clubs are losing players for most of the season. So all their best players that are called up for England duties or whichever nation they're playing for, they're not going to be able to play for their clubs for certain periods of time. Who could make it up? But there you go, these things are sent to try 'em. Got anything to add on that, Richard?
No, I think as far as supporters are concerned, we pay a lot of money to go and watch professional rugby, expecting to see, the best players from England, Wales, or Scotland, certainly in the Premiership, and actually, the amount of times you actually see them play during a season through no fault of their own, it is reduced dramatically.
Mm.
If I see Courtney Laws 6 times in a Saint shirt this season, I will be very surprised.
Well, he's a gun captain, but I guess that's one of the drawbacks if you are that good. You're taken away for international duties, and which is a great honour, don't get me wrong. I'd love to play for the country, but yeah, I'd love to play for all sorts, but I guess when you're at that level, what comes first, the club or the country?
Well, I
And
think
I guess
as players' careers progress, they all have to make that decision. It's like the footballers retiring. They probably think they're coming to the end of their international career, so they retire and leave and play club football before they get pushed over the cliff.
it's like rugby players. I mean, lots of rugby players, when they're sort of getting towards the back end of their careers, or about halfway, 3/4 way through their career, they'll scarper off to places like France to earn some big money.
Yeah.
Before they retire.
Yeah. Awful lot go and play in the French second division. if you look at the French second division and look at the players with the clubs, they're an awful lot in the twilight of their careers. Players out there playing. Yeah.
I mean, take myself for instance. I played my last game when I was 56.
Yeah.
56.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at me.
Anyway, Tim, I'm going to have to go now,
All right.
and I'll see you
I'll
over the
Saturday.
week, Saturday and Sunday, both days, hopefully.
Brilliant.
Okay, mate.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us this evening. You've been an absolute star. You've given us some really valuable tips and information on Premiership rugby and what's going on in the game. So,
Yeah. You're welcome.
Yeah, you've been
All
a
right,
star.
Tim. I'll see you
Thanks,
Saturday.
Richard.
Yeah. Good night, everybody.
See you at the weekend.
Bye.
Well, just me. It is I, Leclerc. Again. So, just to finish up the show, we've had another good show this today. Another good Thirsty Thursday. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Hopefully there's lots of people that have obviously jumping in and out, but those that are still here, thank you. If you've been here from the start, thank you again. If you haven't clicked the like button, obviously give that a go. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, that's also worth doing. So if you want to be notified when we do go live, because we go live every Thursday at 7 o'clock, whether it's British summertime or it'll be Greenwich Mean Time when we get to the other end of October. But we'll carry on going live every Thursday from 7 until 9. And we're talking about normalising mental health, first aid, mental well-being, care for yourself. We're looking at suicide, we're looking at depression, we're looking at anxiety, we're looking at bereavement, we're looking at a whole myriad of stuff. And we're trying to make this a normal conversation for everybody, to make it an everyday chat, because take death, everybody will die. Doesn't matter who you are, one day you will die. You don't all necessarily end up paying tax. I mean, the rich spend most of their time trying to get out of paying tax. But they will die as well. And it don't matter how much money you make, you can't take it with you. But the conversation that you should have with your nearest and dearest, and make it, I mean, you can make it fun. I mean, you can sit around the dinner table and discuss, well, what I'd like for my funeral, start a conversation like that. So that's the conversation you want. Plan your own funeral, because you never know where it's going to happen. I mean, take my mate Harry. He'd had that conversation. He'd planned out his funeral. And what did he do? He actually got to turn up at it. So he'd had that conversation. So his family knew what he wanted. And people turning up in minion suits. He was dressed up in a minion suit, or his minion PJs inside his coffin that was all proper on the outside, and him in his minion suit on the inside. So that's the sort of thing that he had, and he didn't want people to mourn his loss. He wanted people to celebrate his life, which we did. If you don't have that conversation with your nearest and dearest, and you do end it all, and you meet your maker, you're going to probably end up a funeral that you didn't want. You're going to be turning up to your own funeral that you hadn't planned, and they'll get it all wrong. They'll have the wrong sort of music. They'll have the everything would be wrong. A wrong sort of coffin, wrong place. And you'll probably end up getting buried if you wanted a cremation. If, like me, I'd like a Viking funeral, stuck on a boat and arrows fired at in and down a stream on fire. Don't think they'll allow that somehow. So I'll have to come up with something else when I. But it's a conversation that you can have. You can plan your own funeral. And what you do is you plan your own funeral, you write out what you want, you stick it in your will, and when it's that time, it comes out, oh, look what we found. That's what he wanted. Well, do that for him. Or her. As the case may be. So that's the sort of thing that we're doing. We're trying to normalise that conversation. We're trying to make it all fun. We're trying to destigmatise suicide. How many people do you know have committed suicide? It's a terrible thing. But there are reasons to it. There is a reason why people go down that route of self-harm. And that's the sort of conversations that we're having. That's the sort of thing that we're trying to open up. That's the sort of thing that we want to normalise. Because it's everybody, it's in everybody's own interest to be able to talk about these things. And while we're talking about it, it makes it normal. It makes it easier to deal with. It makes it easier to talk about when you're having problems, when you're having a bit of a breakdown, your mental health is suffering because of something that's gone on in your life. Finding someone you can talk to. Don't bottle it up. Don't just don't hide it. You don't have to tell the world, obviously. I mean, you don't have to stand on the rooftops and shout it, I'm having dramas, I'm having a mental health breakdown. You don't need to do that. You just need to sit down and talk to somebody you love, somebody your nearest and dearest, and have that conversation about those issues that you're not feeling right. And we were talking about that the other day. We were talking about men's issues. I think that was last week. If you're up and down like a yo-yo all night, go and get your prostate checked out. Might be something wrong with it. So that's the sort of conversation that you need to do. If something doesn't feel right, get it checked out. The sooner you get it checked out, the better off you'll be. So, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been a pleasure having your company. It's been great seeing some comments coming in the chat box. If you're still here, thank you. And we'll see you again next week. Same time, same place, Thursday, live stream. Next week, don't forget, it's going to be the archaeological special. I'll be reminding you every day. Watch out for the link. Spread the link about. Tell your friends. Get people involved. Because archaeology, although you don't know it, affects all of us at one stage or other in our lives. So I am going to bid you, good people, where am I? This is what I need to do. I need to do that. I need to do that in a second. So, it's been a pleasure. This has been your host, Tim Heale.
The Tim Heale Thirsty Thursday live stream from 7 until 9 weekly. Here's your host, Tim Heale.
That's it. I'm out of it. Thank you.